Good evening, YouTube. What the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage back in Total War Warhammer. We're going to be doing a little bit of testing tonight. This map's not completely even, but it should be close enough. So I've been told a couple of interesting things about the Chaos Warriors and what may help them, specifically when facing the vampire counts. But I wanted to test a few scenarios. So a unit that doesn't get a whole lot of use for Chaos is going to be the Chaos Knights with Lances. Let's actually bring that as... Actually, let's not bring it as our Lord. We want to do Chaos Knight with Lances, and then I'm going to bring a Fire Sorcerer. We're going to put him on a horse. I'm going to take away all the extra abilities, except for maybe Cascading Fire Cloak and the Flaming Sword of Ruin. And I want to test the effects of this whenever these guys are going to be facing up against a big hitter like the Blood Knights. Now, the AI may or may not cooperate. You can see it's actually giving the Blood Knights all the chance to win. Let's take a look at the unit statistics between these two. So here's your Chaos Knights with Lances. Let's take a look at how they stack up against Blood Knights. They have less hit points. They have less armor. No. Sorry. The Blood Knights have less hit points, armor, and leadership. They have more speed, less melee attack, more melee defense, less weapon strength, and less charge bonus. So they do have an anti-large, and they also have frenzy, and then the Blood Knights are also armored and shielded. If we take a look at the Chaos Knights, they're anti-infantry, but it's mainly this that I'm interested in. It's their charge bonus. It's really quite large. They also cause fear, which is nice. I'm sure that the Blood Knights have the same ability they do. Hide, Forest, Frenzy. Yeah, so Frenzy gives +8 melee attack and a little bit of extra charge bonus, as long as their leadership, unless the leadership is wavering. So that's definitely a nice buff for them. And if engaged in melee, they gain some missile resistance. So those are the kind of things we're going to see between them. What's this one back here? Undead. Okay, yeah, never mind. So nothing big to see. Let's give this a shot. I'll see you on the battlefield. Now, some of you may think that this isn't really a fair test because the Chaos or the Chaos Sorcerer of Fire cost a lot more when combined with the Chaos Knights with Lances. Now, the truth is, though, is that the vampires are going to probably have a sorcerer of some sort in their army, most likely Lord of Vampires. So yeah, they'll have access to Invocation and Nahak and other stuff. So this is an idealized test scenario where I want to see if this Flaming Sword of Ruin, with all the extra damage that it grants, helps my men win. But this Cascading Fire Cloak also gives my guys a lot more armor-piercing damage. That's actually probably a better one for this particular sense, because it gives my guys extra defense. Let's see what the time frame is on its 19 seconds. So I'm going to wait for these guys to kind of close the distance a little. Let's go ahead and charge. I'm going to hit my guys with the Cascading Fire Cloak. Alright, so they are under the effect of it, and let's see who wins this fight. I'm just going to use just the Cascading Fire Cloak at the moment. So you can see my Chaos Knights win the charge very convincingly. Like, very convincingly, because of the extra damage that they deal that whole time. And look at this, just absolutely crushes the Blood Knights. Now the fight will turn around a little bit in favor of the Blood Knights because that's worn off. But just to give you an idea there, so a lot of people feel that the Chaos is at a definite cavalry disadvantage to the vampires. That is not true. The Chaos Knights with Lances, for their price in this case, perform extremely well versus the Blood Knights. Now again, remember there was no Invocation in the Heck, but I could easily use this again. I'm not going to, because I'm going to assume that I need to use my magic elsewhere. But that's only 5 mana, and it allows my Chaos Knight with Lances to pretty handily defeat this Blood Knight, which is otherwise an extremely superior unit. So about 50% remaining there is a pretty good result. So I just kind of wanted to point that out to you as one thing to consider. Now, another unit that a lot of people mentioned to me that I haven't really used yet this Chaos week is the Chaos Warriors with Halberds. I kind of want to test these guys' performance out in melee, and I'm going to bring a Fire Sorcerer just so that we can get some extra test in. So here's the guys with Halberds. Let's just we'll test again versus the vampires, because to me the vampires seem very well suited for taking out Chaos. Now I'm gonna go ahead and bring the Grave Guards with great weapons, And let's test this and kind of see how do these Chaos Warriors with Halberds stack up against the Graveguard with great weapons. So let's say that I sell all in and I bring quite a few units with Halberds. Can they serve as mainline infantry, or do they have to specifically be used against large units? Now, the main reason why I'm bringing these and asking this question is because a lot of people think these guys are going to be good versus Crypt Horrors. They might be. There's something that very much concerns me, though, and we'll test it, and it's going to be their fact that they have fairly low melee attack, and I'm worried that the Crypt Horrors will basically poison all of this right off of them and then pound the crap out of them. But let's do a couple of tests. First, I want to see how they hold up for infantry, and the reason being is, if these guys can't trade decently with infantry, then the problem is going to be is that Crypt Horrors are always mixed in with the meat shield. So let's test this out. Alright, so just a quick stat comparison here. As we look at the Graveguard with great weapons, they have more hit points than the Warriors with Halberds, a little less armor, a lot less leadership, the same speed, less melee attack, less melee defense, but more weapon strength, and a little bit more charge bonus. Both units should have the armor piercing trait. The only big difference is my guys are anti-large, whereas the others are anti-infantry. So let's just see how this fight trades. The Chaos Warriors with Halberds are cheaper, and I'm not going to use my Fire Sorcerer at the moment. And let's just kind of see how this plays out. Let's see whether or not the Graveguard is able to clean the clock of my Chaos Warriors here. So I'm going to fast forward, and we'll just kind of see. I mean, it looks like this fight's going decently well for my Halberds, but they are losing. And they're going to lose pretty significantly in the end here. So it looks like, well, the enemy general died right there, so we'll see what happens, because the general's within the unit. But yeah, it's still going to be a pretty clear victory for the Graveguard with great weapons. So, I mean, it's a respectable performance for the unit with Halberds, to be sure, because they're mainly an anti-large unit. But let's test out another. I want to see what happens when we use the Cascading Fire Cloak, because it's extremely helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and countercharge the Graveguard. And I'm going to spin up the Cascading Fire Cloak so that we have it right on contact. And my guys will do all the extra damage right off the bat. So my guys have a lot of melee defense, 72 at this point. They're going to have it for 20 seconds, plus 36% more armor piercing, which is significant. Because the Chaos Warriors with Halberds have really nice weapon strength. So, I mean, that's one of their biggest benefits. But now that weapon strength's back down to normal at 34, so that's kind of what you can see. So, I mean, it definitely helped them do a substantial amount more damage. I'm not going to use the Flaming Sword of Ruin here. I could. I'm just going to limit this to just the Cascading Fire Cloak. And let's see how much it helps Chaos Warriors with Halberds be a mainline infantry unit. Because if you had these guys close enough together, you really could support them with something like this, with this Fire Sorcerer. So we're going to put it on here again, give them another 20 seconds of extra damage, and let's just kind of see if they can go toe-to-toe with the Graveguard with great weapons. I'm going to fast forward again. So their buff time is over. We're just waiting on the cooldown. They're still struggling to keep up. Give them buff number 3. But with the support of the Fire Sorcerer here, they actually win the fight. So Cascading Fire Cloak, combined on the Halberds, I mean, it kind of does make them stand up a little bit better as mainline infantry. Though, do remember, that's a Graveguard with great weapons. There's other units where these guys won't fare so well. Let me demonstrate. This time I'm going to match up the Halberds against a Greatsword. And if we take a look at the differences, my guys have more hit points. The Greatswords have, or hold on, I'm trying to remember these stats they compare here. So my guys have more hit points, a little less leadership, less melee defense, a little less weapon strength. No, hold on, this is the stats of the Greatswords. So yeah, the Greatswords have an extra 10 charge bonus, so that's pretty significant. Sorry, I read that backwards, my bad. So the Greatswords have some better stats in some respect. So let's see whether or not I can beat a Greatsword, which to me is a better infantry unit than the Graveguard with great weapons. So I'm going to use the Cascading Fire Cloak once again, and let's just see how well Halberds can stand up to Greatswords. Because what I'm doing here is I'm testing the viability of these guys as mainline if they're supported with the Fire Sorcerer. And I feel like this is relevant in the sense that, you know, it can kind of tell us whether or not bringing a bunch of these guys will be too risky to sell out to. So this is with constant support of the cascading fire cloak, and they are still suffering badly at the hands of the greatswords. I think the greatswords cost just marginally more. They still won though. I think the greatswords cost just a little bit more. Let's go take a look real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and go through the loading screen and out so we can take a look. So again, I mean, you can see the cascading fire cloak definitely gives the Chaos Warriors with halberds a significant amount of damage, and I think it's because they have so much AP damage as is that when it gets jacked up by the cascading fire cloak, that it just gets to be pretty absurd. So definitely makes them stronger. So the 875 for the Chaos Warriors with halberds versus the 950 here for the great swords. So that, again, that's a pretty good trade. Let's see how they stack up against a unit, say like Black Orcs. Okay, let's look at this. The Black Orcs cost substantially more, like a lot more. They're 1100 versus the 875. So, but they also have 1065 more hit points, 10 more armor, a little less leadership, better speed, better melee attack, less melee defense, better weapon strength, and way more charge bonus. So the Black Orcs are definitely, just by the stats here, a better unit. I'm going to hit my guys with the Cascading Fire Cloak and support them with it all throughout this fight, and let's see whether or not halberds can stand their ground against Black Orcs. If they can, this is fairly significant, because with a little bit of support from a Fire Sorcerer, that means that halberds can present a dangerous mainline infantry. Now remember, this spell only affects everything in a 45-meter radius. Everything outside that radius is going to be in trouble, so you'd be forced to fight in somewhat close quarters, which may or may not be a good thing for you. I'm just trying to demonstrate here the potential, and it's significant. These warriors with halberds are outperforming their weight class rather nicely under the influence of this Cascading Fire Cloak, to the point where you're seeing them defeat infantry units that should easily mop the floor with them. But these units aren't. I mean, Black Orcs are it's gonna be very close here. I think, yeah, it was the leadership of the Orcs in the end that gave it away for them. But I mean, that's a substantial result here, people. That's a very substantial result. So what it means is that you have the potential to maybe bring more of these guys than you might originally feel comfortable with, thinking that halberds won't do very well versus infantry. If you buff them properly, they can. Now, so to this point, I've been acting like they can do well against infantry. And to this, well, how do they do versus cavalry? Obviously, other than not being able to catch them due to their slow speed. Let's straight to the top of the food chain. So I'm not even gonna brace. I'm gonna countercharge a Grail Knight, which is one of the best anti-infantry cavalry in this game. So I'm gonna let the Grail Knights get a clean charge on me. Now, the AI is probably going to try and cycle charge these guys because they're shock cavalry, and that's fair. Most players wouldn't just leave a shock cavalry engaged with an anti-large unit, but we'll see what the AI does, whether or not it cycles or whether it doesn't cycle. Let's just see how the warriors with halberds proceed. Now, this is letting them full-on take the brunt of a charge. They lost a pretty fair number of units and almost half their health here now that the charge is wearing off, but now you can see the damage start to be inflicted, and this is with no sorcerer boosting. I'm just asking this question: how well can they perform on the flanks if charged by a really good cavalry? And I just want to find out. So, all right, the AI is going to pull out here, and they're going to countercharge. This actually should be painful for my men. It is. So that may have turned that fight around because the AI stayed in combat for so long. But I mean, you can see they put up a respectable performance for sure here. The AI could have cycled charged more and maybe won this fight. But you can see it's essentially a trade at that point, and that's a great trade if you're the Chaos Warriors, because you've taken a 1,500 gold unit off the field with an 875. So pretty respectable performance versus cavalry. What about versus monsters? Let's take a look at that scenario. I'm going to test what I believe to be two of the most common monster scenarios faced by Chaos. One is going to be Cryptors, because I feel like the vampires are an extremely good counter pick to Chaos. So I'm going to test just straight on with Cryptors. Now, bear in mind, in a real battle, you probably won't go head-to-head with Cryptors without there being zombies, skeletons, or even Graveguard. So this will not be quite so simple. I just want to know, in a head-to-head, throwdown, duke-it-out match here, who wins between the warriors with halberds and the Cryptors. So let's take a look. I'm going to fast forward. The Cryptors are losing quite a bit. They're going to try and cycle out. I don't know why the AI does this, but I mean, it's if anything, it's probably just, I mean, it'll hurt them a little because they pull away, but they're also going to get a nice counter charge on me, and my guys are poisoned, so they're going to be slow. So let's just kind of see how this plays out. I mean, the Cryptors are performing, in my mind, very well, considering this is a very expensive anti-large unit. They are going to lose. So can the Halberd beat the Cryptor? Yes. Looks like head-to-head it can win, but look at the significance of the damage that the Cryptor put out here. And remember, the Cryptor is cheaper and is almost certain to be supported by skeletons. Look at them run away, too. That's hilarious. They want to get far enough away to do a proper countercharge. They're going to die. So Cryptors do get beat head-to-head. Let's test one more monster scenario. So Chaos Warriors with Halberds do have charge defense against large, and a Giant would be a pretty common pick versus Chaos because Chaos only has Marauder Horsemen in terms of missile units. So a Giant becomes a pretty potent foe. And you can see here he's going to tear up some of these Chaos with Halberds. I love that animation. It's pretty sweet. So he's tossing people around. Let's see how the Chaos Warriors with Halberds. This is just one unit. The Giant costs not quite, but almost twice as much as the one unit of Warriors with Halberds. So let's see how they perform versus a unit that's basically twice their price. And the answer to that question, as you can see from the battle here, is they perform extremely well in this fight. Extremely well. They braced against the Giant, and they are causing enough damage that they're going to win this fight. That's what it looks like. So that is a very, very good performance versus that particular monster. One other one I might be curious about is the Ragnarok. Let's take a look at that. This test is going to look a little different than usual. I couldn't bring the Spider as the general because this mod does weird things and makes the Spider into 2 spiders with twice as many hit points whenever you put it as the general. So I had to just bring a regular one. I just brought like a Night Goblin Shaman with absolutely no abilities, so he's not going to make any real impact on this fight. And the Spider cost more than 2 Warriors with Halberds, so I stacked up 2 Warriors with Halberds. And let's see how they perform. This is going to be getting rear charged by a Goblin Shaman. But like I said, he should be minimally impactful in this fight, as he's not real strong. One of my Warriors with Halberds routed there because of the terror effect, so that's noteworthy. The other one may rout as well, but it looks like it's holding its ground. I'm going to ignore the Shaman. Yeah, it looks like the 2 Halberds with a relative degree of ease here, not super easy, but with a relative degree of ease, can defeat the Spider. So the Spider's a lot more potent versus them than the Giant, but they can defeat it. So again, impressive overall anti-large performance from these guys. I think that about covers it for the Warriors with Halberds. So just a couple other questions I wanted to put it into. Are certain Chaos units, one of the big questions you get with Chaos units are they worth their price? A lot of people feel like Chaos is overpriced, so I want to test kind of peer against peer. So this Chaos Warrior with Great Weapons rocks in at 875, and we've got a Black Orc over here that weighs in at 1100, so considerably more expensive. So like, what if I come over here and if we try and make all things equal for price, I can get 5 upgrades on this Chaos Warrior with Halberds, and let's see how it stacks up at the same price level as a Black Orc. So I just figured this might be an interesting test, so let's go check it out. Alright, here it comes, Clash of the Titans. Black Orcs versus Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons. These are 2 big units of quite evil, nasty characters here. Now let's see how this plays out again. So I've adjusted the cost of my Chaos Warriors. Wow, they killed the Black Orc boss almost right away there, and they're performing quite well when they've been upgraded to the same price level. But let's see. Black Orcs are a better unit, of course, but since they cost more, I just wanted to throw the upgrades on there to try and make it equal in the cost department. Obviously, I could test and see how they do against Black Orcs with no upgrades. And we may just do that right after this, but this is the upgraded version. You can see that they actually hold their ground against the Black Orcs quite well. And again, this is price for price. So the upgrades here would appear to be basically worth it. The Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons were just slightly cheaper than the Black Orcs, and they almost won that fight. It was very, very close between the 2 of them. Let's see what happens if you don't. I mean, well, we know what's going to happen. If I don't put upgrades, you're going to lose. I think the question is how bad. But, I mean, that's not a bad performance out of the Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons, to be honest. And I feel like those guys do actually hit pretty well for their price point. They're not bad. One good test maybe is let's put them head-to-head with some great swords real quick. I won't upgrade the warriors with great weapons at all, just to kind of simulate, you know, maybe a player who hasn't done so. How do they stack up head-to-head against a great sword? The clash of the warriors with great weapons and the great swords. Wow, that one guy got wrecked right up front. Let's see how this one turns out. So the great swords cost 75 more. And they are generally a pretty cost-effective unit. I would expect them to win this fight. The question is going to be by how much. Both generals are dead. Looks like the Great Swords are outperforming the Chaos Warriors to a significant degree. Let's just let it play out here and see what happens. The Chaos Warriors, though, doing, like I said, a pretty respectable performance here. They do cost less. Not too far off what I would expect for that cost, to be honest. That comes in right about where I would expect it. I think that's a fairly even trade, all things considered. So I don't see anything wrong with those units. Now, the big one that you never see used very much because of their sheer cost is Chosen. Let's go take a look at them. Chosen. So what are Chosen meant for? Well, let's just take a good look. You've got several varieties of Chosen. You have the standard variety here, which are just armored and shielded. These guys have pretty substantial attack stats, and their weapon strength isn't bad, but it's only 11 armor piercing. And if you take a look at like one of these ones that has the great weapons, it's 46 and 34 of that's armor piercing. So 3 times the armor piercing damage coming off the Chosen with great weapons, though they cost 200 more. So what would you use a regular Chosen for? Well, you're not going to want it to go against other units with an armor piercing bonus because I think they will vastly underperform there. I mean, but if you look, though, they have a ton of melee defense. They have 120 armor. They have a 22 charge bonus, which is pretty darn good. Barring black orcs, that's better than most things you're going to run into. So, I mean, it's a pretty impressive performance that you're going to get out of these guys. So, just out of curiosity, these guys cost $12.50. How well do they perform, and let's just say against cheap enemy infantry? I don't think this is a very likely scenario, but, you know, it's a scenario. Let's play this out. So let's go with 3 Empire Swordsmen because it's roughly the same cost. It's about 50 difference. But let's just take a look at this scenario. Can they hold their own against this kind of numbers, and can their quality hold out? So it's 60 men versus 180. Alright, so 60 Chosen versus 180 Swordsmen. The Swordsmen are kind of breaking up into weird formations here. They're gonna make that outflank me, but I mean, what can you do? You've picked a unit that costs significantly more, so AI did not outflank me here, so this is kind of a best case scenario. Let's see how the Chosen stand up to being outnumbered 3 to 1 here. So here we go. I'm gonna fast forward. They are racking up kills at a very rapid pace and causing significant damage to their enemies. So I don't think these guys are going to have any problem holding off 3 units of Empire Swordsmen. Again, this is kind of an idiotic matchup. You wouldn't expect this very often. This is just to kind of get a feel for this unit's not listed as anti-armor. So I'm using it in what I feel like is the most appropriate use based on this unit card. I don't feel like this is a likely scenario. But since it's not anti-armor, I see that this elite unit can be used to defeat many units of more standard infantry, and you are seeing it do such a thing with relative ease. Did I say that these guys are 3 to 1? Yeah, because it's more than that. I wasn't doing very good math there. That was 270 swordsmen. Dude, I'm on crack tonight or something. I was doing like a ton of data analytics at work today, and I think the numbers went to my head. Yeah, so that was 270 swordsmen, my bad, versus the 60 warriors with great weapons. So what is that, like over 4 to 1, I think. So yeah, pretty long odds there, and if my math's off, forgive it. I'm tired. So it's not likely you're going to be beating down hundreds of swordsmen in an online battle. Now maybe in campaign, but not in an online battle. So let's see how the Chaos Warrior, or the Chosen, do against a great sword, which is going to be a lot more likely matchup whenever you're in multiplayer. Now the Chosen cost 300 more than the great sword, so about 30-some-odd% more than what the great sword cost. Let's see how it trades out. If it trades pretty good, that's good. If it doesn't, then it's going to show that this unit really can't hack it out with a unit that has anti-armor traits. And right now, I mean, the trade is not very good between the Chosen and the great swords, and this is exactly what I expected. So in all reality, the Chosen are only going to be useful against large amounts of cheap infantry that lacks armor piercing. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to pay back their cost. They may defeat this greatsword here. The question is going to be, do they defeat it convincingly enough? If they keep up at this pace, they just might. I was sitting here starting to doubt these guys, but this actually might turn out to be a fair result. That's actually a pretty fair result. I mean, when you think about the cost difference between these guys, that's maybe a little bit crappy for the Chosen, but it's pretty close. It's not too far off when you look at the cost differences between these guys, so that's actually kind of surprising. Let's check the ones with great weapons. So I wanted to kind of test an insane scenario here. The cost of Chosen with great weapons is 1450, very high. I brought 2 great swords, and then I've also got this Chaos Sorcerer with fire. These 2 units still cost more than the great swords, but I want to find out, like, if I invest heavily in this extremely elite infantry, can it outperform its opponents so significantly that it outweighs the risk of bringing the 1 unit versus, you know, I can bring so many others. So I want to see what happens here as the AI dogpiles into my warriors with great weapons with more than 1 unit. Can I buff these guys and cause them to win a fight that would otherwise, for most types of infantry, be unwinnable? So I've got the warriors with great weapons stacked up here. Let's keep buffing them. As soon as we rout that 1 unit, I'm going to pile on over to here. We're going to keep buffing the warriors with great weapons. Can they defeat 2 great swords? Now, the AI wasn't ideal here at outflanking, but they did hit me with the flank charge. They did outnumber me significantly. So there was 180 great swords to my 60 Chosen with great weapons. And I actually think I got my math right this time. And check that out. Sure enough, with Cathcating Fire Cloak, they beat the living crap out of the 2 great swords head to head. Again, I don't know how likely this scenario is because there's a couple things you're going to have to be aware of, and I'll talk about it as we go to the outro. This is the end of the test that I'm going to do tonight. I'll do more tests on Chaos units because this is just me kind of trying to get out here and learn a little bit. The warriors with great weapons, or the Chosen with great weapons, are going to be extremely vulnerable to skirmishers and artillery, and cavalry rear charges too. They cost so much. Can they pay for themselves? Well, I mean, it looks like it if they get the right support from a fire sorcerer or something, or maybe Archaon. I mean, they definitely appear that they can get the job done. I mean, that was impressive. It really was impressive. But, you know, I mean, how realistic is that? Can you keep them safe from skirmishers? I don't know. There's a lot of questions to me that remain out there about using these guys. But, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, they should either get a massive reduction to their cost, or I don't know. I have to admit that Chaos is kind of gimped because they don't have skirmishers. But a lot of their other stuff, I'm not going to say they're great. They definitely have struggles, like I said, especially, I think, versus vampires and Empire. They're gonna struggle. But I'm seeing a few things here that I just didn't used to know, and I'm not sure how, if anything, I would, or how, if in any way, I would change the Chosen at this point, because you've just seen both these units actually hit at the price point that they should. The question is whether or not they're usable in multiplayer battles. Maybe, maybe not. I'm going to try it, and I'm going to support them with this Sorcerer, Fire Sorcerer, you better believe, because that was an interesting result to see these guys cream 2 units of great swords. What other kind of test do you want to see me run? We still got Forsaken. I didn't test Chaos Spawn. There's a bunch of other units. Like, what other kind of stuff do you want to see me test with the Chaos units? Any combinations, any single units? Let me know what you think of this. Did I get the test wrong? Was I missing something? But this is just, I hope to add a little bit of learning to the Chaos Challenge week here. Hope you enjoyed it. HeirofCarthage signing out. I appreciate all of you watching. The discussion on this stuff is fantastic. I love it. I mean, I don't always get to them every day because I'm busy with work, but I love answering all your comments. I tried really hard to get to many of them today, and I think that I succeeded, or yesterday by the time you're watching this. But yeah, I tried really hard, and I love it. Appreciate your viewing, and for those who subscribe and like and support me on Patreon and all this other stuff, thank you. Thank you. That's extremely kind of you. Appreciate the support, and appreciate MSI for sponsoring this build that I'm recording this with. HeirofCarthage signing out. I will see you all next time.